Electrification in BC, Challenges and Opportunities. In 2019, the Government of British Columbia released the Clean BC Report, a bold plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and our impact on the environment. The province aims to reduce annual emissions by 40% by 2030, 60% by 2040, and 80% by 2050 over 2007 levels. In this presentation, we'll explore how electrification can help us achieve these goals and address the challenges that these policies may pose to our current energy system. First, let's take a look at BC's current energy supply mixture. Our province has an abundance of hydropower, and as a result, our electricity supply is already 98% renewable. But electricity consumption is not the same thing as energy consumption. In fact, electricity is only 19% of our province's total energy requirements. Almost 70% of our energy is supplied by fossil fuel. A fundamental strategy for decarbonization is to replace fossil fuel-intensive activities with processes that run on electricity. First, we need to inspect which sectors are responsible for producing greenhouse gas emissions. This chart demonstrates that the three main sectors responsible for the majority of emissions are transportation, buildings, and industry. We will explore the Clean BC targets for electrification across each of these sectors and investigate the potential impacts to our energy system in the future. First, let's take a look at transportation. The province's target is by 2040, every new car in BC will be a zero-emissions vehicle. While it's not clear how quickly BC residents and businesses will adopt zero-emission vehicles, we can be sure that by 2030 there will be significantly more cars on the road running on electricity to some extent. So what does this mean for our electricity requirements in the coming decades? Clean Energy BC estimates that changing fuel requirements could increase our annual electricity demand by 10% in 2030 and up to 40% in 2040 over 2017 levels. We also need to be conscious of the change in hourly demand profiles. Research done by UVic's Institute for Integrated Energy Systems explores how wide adoption of zero-emissions vehicles could affect BC's electricity load. The graph plots the projected charging profile for vehicles on a day in 2055, assuming that all transportation has been electrified. We can see that demand is fairly low during the day, and in the evening there's a sharp spike when residents return home for the evening and begin charging their cars. Abrupt changes in electricity demand can put a major strain on power grids, and it is important that we develop strategies for mitigating these effects. We now turn our attention to buildings. BC plans to make gradual changes to the building code to make homes 20% more energy efficient by 2022, 40% by 2027, and 80% by 2032 over our current standards. So what do changes to the building code mean for electricity requirements? Energy efficiency upgrades will involve replacing hundreds of thousands of natural gas furnaces with air-source heat pumps. A similar number of natural gas water heaters will also be replaced by electric heat pumps. It's estimated that these changes will increase annual building electricity requirements by about 21% by 2030. Just like with transportation, we also need to be cognizant of the hourly load profiles for different building types. Commercial buildings, such as shops, offices, and schools, have high demand during the workday, whereas residential demand peaks in the morning and evening. The final component of BC's emissions come from industry. BC's most carbon-intensive industries include forestry, mining, manufacturing, and fossil fuel production. The question is, what industrial processes can be electrified in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions? Research done by Clean Energy BC concludes that electrifying natural gas production is a strategy that has the greatest potential for greenhouse gas reductions. Replacing gas compressors with electric compressors can result in as much as 64% reduction in emissions for the industry. However, it also increases power requirements by as much as 72%. So how will BC meet the demands of electrification in the coming decades? It is projected that the Clean BC targets will increase our overall electricity consumption by as much as 50% in the next 10 years and 100% by 2050 over 2017 levels. Currently, the Site C Dam is the only major hydro expansion project underway, and this will meet only about 10% of the increased demand. Our best option right now is to use models to predict how we can meet the demands of electrification with low-carbon technologies. This projection of our future energy supply mixture from Clean Energy Canada suggests that we will need to expand our wind, solar, geothermal, and biomass capacities in order to meet our future energy needs. To conclude, we acknowledge that electrification is an essential strategy for decarbonizing our economy and daily lives. CleanBC's emissions targets require electrification across transportation, building, and industry sectors. The proposed changes may double our electricity consumption by 2050. If we are to meet our energy needs in a sustainable fashion, this will likely require the expansion of a variety of renewable technologies. Developing strong models of our energy system can help to determine the best course of action in the future.